Man, now that was some trick-or-treating. I mean, we hit like every house in the block like 4 times.
Look at all the shit I got.
Damn, yo, I can't believe they fell for us swapping costumes, man.
I mean, we also held them at gunpoint. Yeah. Oh, what the fuck? I got this last year.
Oh no, not this bullshit again!
I just can't escape them. You know the best way to scare someone for Halloween? Try to explain this to them. Re-releases are everywhere, and there were a lot that we didn't get a chance to discuss last time, but I think we should establish some rules first. What is a re-release?
Oh, I know that one.
Firstly, any game that was released on the same console twice counts. Player's Choice and Greatest Hits do count, but probably won't be mentioned, as all that's been changed is the color of the logo on the box. There are a few exceptions. Metroid Prime, a few glitches were patched and musical bugs were ironed out, and Crash the Wrath of Cortex on PS2 was infamous for bad loading times, but in the Greatest Hits release, was mostly fixed. Same rule applies for standard ports. While they are re-releases, there's not much to talk about if nothing was added. What doesn't count are remakes. We all just have to learn to live with there being 2 Resident Evil 4s on the PS Store that are different games. But in most cases, remasters do count, as more often than not, the original game is still intact. Hell, sometimes all they do is throw it into widescreen and bump up the resolution, meaning we get to see all of the JPEGs that we used to see as backgrounds. This is where things get blurry, as some games call themselves remasters that I think go too far to be considered re-releases. Metroid Prime Remastered is a huge change from the original with new graphics and controls, completely replacing the original in my opinion, but it's still a different enough game to where I'd consider it closer to a remake. The upcoming Soul Reaver Remastered also appears to fall into this realm, as even if the game plays exactly the same, you couldn't call this and this the same game without looking stupid. So for it to be a re-release, the original graphics have to still be mostly intact. The final rule is what I say goes, damn it. If I think something is worth talking about, I'll throw it in even if it breaks the rules. Like last time, I said I don't count the MGS Master Collection because it was just a compilation of ports, then went on to complain about Super Mario 3D All-Stars.
Yeah, that.
With the rules set up, let's get started with son of a bitch. Oh, you thought the Devil May Cry re-releases ended with special editions? You'd be mostly right. Around 2019 to early 2020, Capcom started releasing Devil May Cry games on the Switch. Not the HD collection, DMC 1 came out, and then DMC 2 separately, which is weird on its own. These are the HD collection versions, so why not release the whole collection at once? As someone who loves this series, I've only ever bought DMC 2 when it was packaged with 1 and 3, so it being on its own, even I didn't buy it. I was super excited to have DMC 3 on Switch. It was already my favorite game of all time, and I played the hell out of my Switch, so it was a match made in heaven. Then they announced a special reveal, and it just so happened to be on the same day as a Smash reveal, and that was my first heartbreak. So they didn't put Dante in Smash, but they did announce that they would add style switching, being able to hold all your weapons at once, and local co-op for Bloody Palace. Dude, that completely changes the game. Every good idea that came from future games was put in, making what I already thought was the best game ever made. So why does this piss me off? How come Capcom can't give us the multiplayer we want? DMC 5 had the stupid cameo system and no way to play Bloody Palace with others, and then this one makes it local only, meaning during bosses it goes into this uncomfortable split screen, and none of these features are in the other versions of the game. No update for the HD collection. The additions to the Switch release make this game so much better, and we just have to live with an objectively better version of the game being locked to one console for no reason.
Is he always about this about games he likes?
Yeah, pretty much.
Damn. Oh shit, I got one of these. I thought they stopped making them.
Kit Kats?
Sometimes re-releases are more akin to revivals. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was delisted in 2014 from all digital storefronts, the only places the game ever got released. And since it got a digital-only release, that meant you couldn't buy the game anymore. But then, it was suddenly revived in 2021 as Scott Pilgrim vs. the World Complete Edition, and to make sure it wasn't delisted, it would get a physical release through my mortal enemy. I was fairly new to collecting games at this point, and I wanted to feel the sensation of having a collector's edition. I had the money for it as I was around 17, was still working my first job, and having money was fairly new to me, so I splurged. It took over a year for this box of bullshit to get to my house. It was pushed back numerous times to the point where I forgot I even bought it because my brother bought the game for me already. Then suddenly, here it is. I've come to consider limited run an evil I have to put up with. On one hand, fuck them, not just for the artificial scarcity literally being part of their name, but on the other hand, I like owning things, and I'm a simple man. I see Sonic, and money leaves my bank account. Another oddball of a re-release would be Dead Rising 2 Off the Record, a reimagining of Dead Rising 2, but with Frank West from the original game as the main protagonist. I never played the original Dead Rising 2. I saw a version without Frank and one with him, and it was an easy choice for someone who gets attached to fictional characters easily. There were some minor adjustments to gameplay, such as making the camera important again, adding a few psychopaths at an area that was closed off from the original, and making Frank's moveset more like his moveset from Dead Rising 1. I love concepts like this. The idea of what if scenarios always intrigue me. But aside from that, it's just a new story, which is the least exciting part since I don't really like the story of these games, but that's a topic that'll require an entire marathon. One day, not today. I can't say if it's worth playing the original if you've already played this or vice versa, but if you wanted more Frank West, it's better than Dead Rising 4.
Oh shit, Sody Pop. I haven't had this since 1968.
1968?
I thought you were 22.
What are you guys, cops? Oh, it tastes like shit.
This tastes like piss.
The main way you see games re-released now is through remasters. Sure, you could just port the game over, or maybe it's already backwards compatible. But why not go in and tweak some things, bump up the resolution and frame rate, make it just a bit nicer to play. Make Batman look fucking pissed. Batman Return to Arkham is a re-release of Batman Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, but not Arkham Origins for some reason. That game deserves to be stuck on the PS3, I guess. These are fine enough remasters. I mean, the environments look amazing, it's just a general improvement. Until you turn the camera around, God, the models in these games are always a little wonky, but this is just so much worse. The subtle details are so emphasized now and it just looks wrong. There's so much more lighting effects and just lighting in general. It makes everything brighter and way less interesting to look at. They just did too much, but it brings us to this weird realm where because the Switch version is just the PS3 and Xbox 360 version, it looks better than the version on PS4 and Xbox One. The graphics are all that's really changed here, so there's no huge reason to play this over the original unless you just don't have a PS3, and the out of mission of Arkham Origins really makes this package just completely underwhelming. This also isn't the first time Arkham City was re-released. Batman Arkham City Armored Edition was the Wii U version of the game, featuring some new controls based on the gamepad and forcing you to wear this stupid fucking thing. Why this suit never saw life outside the Wii U is beyond me, but maybe that's for the best. Alright, well, let's just see what Nintendo's doing. I mean, they've never steered me wrong. Let's start somewhere else. A ton of GameCube games were re-released on Wii with motion controls. Mario Power Tennis, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, Pikmin 1 and 2. These are neat novelties, but that's all they kind of are to me. Motion controls are forced, which while it does work better in games like Pikmin, not being able to use a GameCube controller, a controller that this system has ports for out of the box, is just a little weird. It's not all bad though. I mean, take Metroid Prime Trilogy for example.
Go ahead, take it.
The first two Prime games had Japan exclusive new Play Control releases, but we'd get them both bundled with Prime 3 in Metroid Prime Trilogy. And by we, I mean the 5 of us that have copies. Yeah, this is a bit of a rarity these days, which sucks because this is a pretty good way to experience these games. Hell, some things in Prime 1 were slightly changed for this version, like fixing some of the enemies you can miss out on for scan logs, increasing the drop percentage of bigger health and ammo, and adding Jump Ball to the Morph Balls based moveset. And the game translates to Prime 3's control scheme surprisingly well to the point where this version was used as the base for Prime Remastered since most of the changes stayed the same in that release. Because the motion controls are forced, I don't think this is the definitive way to play Prime 1 and 2. They aren't designed with motion controls like 3 was, but this package is well worth the price Nintendo was asking for it 15 years ago. It really is just a way of giving more people the opportunity to play some of the GameCube's best games while giving veterans a new way to experience it too. Too bad nobody took that offer. But this I just don't understand. First of all, remaking Luigi's Mansion 1 as a 3DS exclusive and never porting it to the Switch is mind-boggling, but that conversation has been done to death. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon would rectify this by being on Switch and costing more than the original, which is nothing new. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. Luigi's Mansion 2 was already the black sheep of the series, it being on the 3DS, limited it with its level structure, and was ultimately just a step down from the first game. It's still a great game, but it's not really a step the series needed to take to go from the first to the third game. It's more of just a thing that happened. When I first saw the announcement for this, I was pretty excited. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon was the entry I'd played most as a kid, back before I knew what a game or cube was. I remember specifically getting really into it when I was sick on a family trip. Not into it enough to beat it, but enough to be pissed that they substituted words for a fucking number. So seeing it again was exciting. But then we kept seeing it. Every time it showed up in another direct, it just looked like Luigi's Mansion 2. And now that it's out, why did I buy this? It's not bad, but what did they do that I'm not seeing that made this $60? The main change to the controls, having a second analog stick, makes it much more in tune with the first and third games. But it looks rough as hell. It looks like they just took the 3DS version and blew the dust off so they could put new dust on. I can't say it's bad. If you like the other games, this is a fine entry, but it was also a fine entry on the 3DS, and this did nothing to improve it. But I can't say it's worth the asking price. I mean, unless you have a bomb in your house that'll explode if you don't spend $60 on something Luigi related.
Imagine that!
You know, I think the Halloween version of candy just tastes better.
Was it a different flavor?
Yeah, better.
The PS3 is an interesting console. When being used by devs who have a deep understanding of the system, they can make some amazing games without much compromise. Too bad only like 4 people understand it. The PS4 was not backwards compatible with the PS3, likely because of just how hard of a console it was to emulate or even make games for in the first place. So a ton of games got re-released with the sole purpose of bringing it to the PS4, like Borderlands the Handsome Collection. Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel were re-released with all of the DLC, 4-player split screen, and you could upload your characters from the original games. That's all they really changed though, but something about this is just... it's better. Probably some frame rate and resolution bumps, playing on a controller I like more, and not being a stupid fucking 10-year-old, but this completely replaces the original releases for me just by being the same games. Sucks that Borderlands 1 was left out to dry for so long. For years it was the only game not playable on modern consoles, which was a shame because there were some things about the game that 2 didn't have and made the first game unique. But it was brought down by some clunkiness on the PS3 that as a kid I couldn't stand no matter how much I wanted to love this game. Then in 2019, after announcing Borderlands 3, a game my dad and I had been waiting for years, they announced Borderlands Game of the Year Edition, but not that one, another one, using the same name. See, this is the Enhanced Edition. This was way more than the Handsome Collection. It added customization, shift keys, more guns, a better HUD, and it looks way better. And with all the DLC, this game has a lot to offer, and it's great to be able to play it on the same system as every other game in the series.
Ah, crap. You forgot to hit up the house with all the Japanese candy.
You mean that guy who calls Snickers imports?
Yeah, they're so much better.
One of the most well-known re-releases are the Final Mix versions of Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, that originally only released in Japan. It brought that audience content that was added after the Japanese release for the North American version, but it also added a few new enemies, fixed a trinity that could be missed, a few new cutscenes, and a new boss fight against Xemnas. All in all, this just has more content, but not so much that I feel left out from getting the original on PS2. For one, I wasn't conscious yet, and 2, I didn't know this series existed until 2018. Don't get me wrong, it's bullshit that the US had to wait for the 1.5 collection in 2013, when the original came out in 2002, but you're not missing a whole lot with the original. I mean, it could be worse, it could be Kingdom Hearts 2! Holy shit, this is like a completely different game. New forms and mini games, a higher difficulty, a whole lot of new story and cutscenes, a new story boss, 5 new optional bosses, and an entire area in Radiant Garden that has harder versions of every organization member to fight, and then another super boss that can combo you to death out of the gate? So much was added to this game, it almost puts every other game here to shame. And we didn't get it in America for over 7 years after its Japanese PS2 release. And what's weirder is that Final Mix Plus was a re-release in Japan that was packaged with Chain of Memories, a remake of the GBA game, so PS2 owners could experience this plot-relevant game without buying a Game Boy Advance. America got Chain of Memories in 2008, but not Final Mix. I just don't get it, but thankfully with all the collections, pretty much every game is now available everywhere, as the 1.5 and 2.5 collections would include remastered cutscenes of the DS games that were never re-released.
Man, Halloween used to be so much better back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, today it feels like you have to buy a whole pack of candy just to truly enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, remember?
No.
I mean, remember when you could just eat anything out of your bag?
Oh, like razor blades?
A talking point you often see about gaming these days is how things were so much better without DLC. You'd buy a game, and that would be it. You had the whole game forever. There's actually a word for people who talk about the past like this. Wrong. One of the main reasons re-releases like some of what we've been talking about don't exist anymore is because now if you want to add to your game, you can just release DLC or an update. Back in the day, if you really loved Mortal Kombat 4, first of all, I hear therapy is great this time of year. But if you wanted more characters like Kung Lao, you needed to buy the entire game again with Mortal Kombat Gold, which was only released on the Dreamcast, so not only are you buying the game again, but you might need to buy a whole new console. Wanted more Resident Evil 4? Well, Separate Ways was exclusive to the PS2 release. RE4 was supposed to be a GameCube exclusive, it was never meant to become this. But I guess whatever deal Capcom had with Nintendo didn't have a long commitment, so if you wanted more RE4, you needed to buy the game again, once again, on a system you may not own. Granted, it was the PS2, so you probably did own one, but who knows, you might have been fucking weird. And to make it worse, you have to beat the whole damn game again before you can play Separate Ways, and they got the controls wet! This isn't the only time Capcom has pulled this with Resident Evil. Code Veronica was supposed to only release on the Dreamcast, but that would also come to PS2 with Code Veronica X. What's the difference? Hell if I know, I didn't like this game once, I'm not playing it again. Both of my copies have something wrong with the case. If Sonic 06 giving me appendicitis has taught me anything, it's not to take omens lightly. Wanna know what you're even looking at in Soul Reaver? Here's the game again on the Dreamcast, but with better graphics. It's not even just exclusives, this is exactly what DMC3 Special Edition was. If you liked the original and wanted to play as Virgil, you needed to buy the game a second time and start over, losing your blue orbs, your upgrades, and your Bloody Palace progress. But at least that kind of made sense on the PS2. It's extra stupid that DMC5 did this because Virgil was DLC. They could have just made the Turbo mode and Legendary Dark Knight difficulty exclusive PS5 and Series X updates that only worked on those systems through an upgraded version that lets you keep your save data. But no, I had to buy it again, start over, lose all of my blue orbs and Bloody Palace progress just because I wanted the game to run better.
Do you like the game or not?
But now, they can add all of it after the fact. Kingdom Hearts 3's Remind DLC would have likely been a Final Mix re-release back in the day, but there was no need to do that as they could just add it as an extra download. Fighting games often have like $30 season passes for new characters they add, or they're published by WB Games. Hell, games like Sonic Frontiers and God of War Ragnarok got full-blown extra story. In Sonic Frontiers' case, they got more playable characters and a ton of extra content, all for free. Outside of porting a game, there's just no point in re-releasing it anymore. Don't get me wrong, DLC can suck more often than not and is extremely predatory way too often. But would you rather spend $30 on more content for a game you like, or $60 on what's mostly a game you already own?
Wait, but don't you buy games you already own all the time?
No, why would I do that?
Then what are those?
Character flaws.
How are you gonna act like it's crazy to buy a game you already own for extra content when you buy games you already own for no reason?
Because it's funny. Like you wouldn't buy an extra copy of Batman Arkham City just because it has the worst box art you've ever seen.
Guys, I think this is cyanide.
And this isn't?
You should probably take him to a hospital.
He doesn't have hospital money. We'll take him to Denny's.
Oh, hello. Did you know that you can get a haircut at Denny's by some guy in a corner for $1? Re-releases are pretty much entirely a thing of the past now aside from remasters, and I think that might be for the best. There's still a lot of re-releases that we could talk about, but I think we've covered pretty much every major aspect that I could think of and want to talk about. Well, except for one, but No, I just can't. And you know, now that it's all said and done, I think the main thing we should take away from this is that you can't rob people for candy.